we're a few months away from year end, and so I want to start looking at some of the movies that have 3 movies in the series. Like, see if we can pick out as a potential candidate for next year's subtitle.
Wait. That is supposed to be not at the start of the year or at the 1 year mark. It's supposed to be at the start of the new year, Jeff.
Yes, new year. But You're excited. I understand. Much the same way that I was excited to get out of 2020. I'm excited to just try the next one, 2022. It'll be good.
Surely this one will be good, right?
Anyway, so I just want to find a couple bad ones that we can start crossing off the list, as we progress through the next 4 months or so. And I found the movie Skyline. Have you seen the movie Skyline before?
No? What's Skyline?
I'm not sure. But don't look it up.
No,
Nick. You can't. Nick, don't. I hear you typing.
I typed 3 letters. You stop. I mean, they were Sky, but
So, okay, this is a dumb story, but I did see that the trilogy is called. The first one's called Skyline. The next one is called Beyond Skyline, and then the third one is called Skylines, which I feel like I feel like that was pretty bad.
Or was it genius?
Okay. But
what if they had named it still Skyline?
Nick, okay. But I wanted to see if it was any good. And I looked it up on IMDb and it had a 4 as its rating or something like that. Not great. So
okay, yeah.
IMDb agrees with me. And then Nick, okay, I'm gonna link you something. And I want you to click. Man. I want you to click on it, but I don't want you to read the title of this video or anything. I want you to try to pretend like you're going through this with me together. Okay. That's my first time. This is okay. I'm going to link you to the trailer. Please, just click on the video and do not read anything on it. Just listen to the video. Okay, click the play button and watch this video.
Well, this is an Old Spice commercial.
Nicholas, do you already know this?
No, I've seen this.
You've seen this?
I've seen these two.
Okay, well. I guess you've kind of ruined the fun. So I watched this commercial and I thought it was the trailer for this movie, but it was just the commercial. And I'm like, wow, this is so overtly an Old Spice commercial. And then it started the actual main trailer.
It's like meta product placement. It's so overt that it's like in on the joke, right? It's in on the joke and it knows how bad the product placement is. It's such a damn. These guys are meta. These guys know what the people want.
Welcome to the Year We Started podcast. It's a podcast born Phoenix like from the ashes of last year's podcast. I am your co-host, Jeff.
And I am your Old Spice Nick.
This is our podcast where a couple of friends have a continent part that will come together and talk about some of the things that are fun and interesting to us. Nicholas, aside from talking about some terrible
intros
to our future podcast that starts next year.
Some new one. Whole new concept.
Yeah. Well, first off, I did want to mention, Nick, for the first time in like a month almost, it feels like we are recording at our regular time-ish.
I know.
It's great.
You're welcome for me not being a mess up this time.
And me also not being willing to change because it also didn't work for me. So I wanted to talk real briefly about, because we have a lot here. We could talk about a lot of stuff. A couple months back, I talked about AFC Wimbledon. I have talked a little bit about how I want to get into some soccer stuff because I feel like there's big gaps in the sports that I care about, and I do like watching soccer or football if you're from the UK. I just narrowed down the entire rest of the world as the UK. If you're from the rest of the world, I'm sorry, I've insulted very many people. Like, I've known that I would like watching soccer stuff because it's like completely like commercial free, and then you have halftime, and you can like go walk around and then come back, and then you have the rest of the game. It's very, very different than what I'm used to with basketball, especially football. And I paid to be able to watch all of AFC Wimbledon's games this year.
That's cool.
It's really, really cool because this is their first time for their first season at their new stadium with actual fans. They had their first game that they played where they had a huge comeback and tied the game in their first game with fans. And then they had most recently this last Saturday where they had a pretty epic win for their very first victory with fans. Like I've known about this team because they are part of like this weird cult following of a podcast called Dear Hank and John, or Vlog Brothers is the YouTube channel. And like it's just been a thing that I've been passively aware of, and I've kind of enjoyed like following how they've been doing and stuff like that. But this year, like I said, I've decided that I really wanted to get into this, and so I've watched all the games that have been televised on this app. And I've even, like, I have my TV downstairs in our basement hooked up to a PC so that I can watch them on the actual TV, because they're definitely not broadcast here in the US unless you watch it on their streaming service. And, like, I have gotten so into this stupid third-tier English soccer team, Nick. Like, the super cool thing is like they, like, unlike, like in the US, like there's like farm leagues in baseball, and you have the non-NBA leagues. What is G League? Is that how NBA works? Yeah, you have like the G League teams in NBA. You have the XFL, I guess, or Canadian football and the NFL. It's not the same thing at all.
I was gonna say,
but no, you have like these like these sub leagues that are where people can sometimes be brought up from in U.S. sports, but in European football, like they, like, if AFC Wimbledon does really good and they get like into the position where they're in the playoffs or they get promoted, like they could like get promoted into the NFL equivalent, like for us. And like, so that like there's like that little bit of excitement, like maybe like obviously it's definitely not going to happen overnight, but there's a chance that like this little franchise might turn into something that is part of the main league of soccer in Europe. And so, like, it just has that, like, little, like, it's a very small thing right now, story, but it's like, it has been a very long underdog story. And it has the potential to be, like, this really cool thing. And they're, like, actually playing really, really well. They have a lot of young people that they're definitely not going to be able to afford very soon because they're very, very good.
What is it like when the team, like, goes to to whatever the equivalent, like, whatever the tier 1 league is? Is it, they lose a lot of the players? Do they start just like grabbing free agents who are like kicked out anyway?
So I say they're in League One, but what that really means is they're third tier English football. And then there's the Champions League and then the Premier League. And right now I think AFC Wimbledon's ranked like 10th, and if they get to the top like 4 or 5 or whatever, they get to go to the playoffs. And last year they barely scraped by and stayed in the first league. But this year they have, this year they have fans in the stadium, which means a lot of revenue. They actually recently drew Arsenal, which is a Premier League team, for like this European Cup. Which basically,
I know Arsenal. Like,
you've heard of that name. So basically, what that means is like they basically won the lottery. They could lose like 0 goals to 70. And it would still be an enormous victory because it is they didn't even just draw Arsenal, they drew Arsenal away, which means it will be at the Arsenal Stadium, which means they get, and how it works is I think they get like half the ticket sales. So they get like half the ticket sales of one of the best, well, they're not doing so hot this year, but they're still a Premier League team. They get half the ticket sales, which is like an entire season's worth of income for them. So that helps them afford better players and be able to like sign players on longer and keep them a little bit longer. But anyways, I thought it was really interesting because like how passionate I've gotten with this team in such a short amount of time. And I was wondering, like, are there other, like, not obviously you have your NBA stuff that you like, but are there other non-NBA things that you've gotten like super passionate about that you would be watching live and get worked up, and even like, because I literally jumped up and yelled when we scored a late goal the other day.
Hey, nice!
I was so excited, I scared my wife and children.
Okay, so the only other one that I've had with this is League of Legends. I was very into League esports for a little while. and I cared a lot for a couple of years there, where I would watch the finals and I would watch Worlds, even though Worlds was always playing in like Korea, which meant that I was playing at like 2 a.m. and that's not good for work. It's not good for work at all. When Nick's
or
up,
honestly,
like,
anything on anything.
True,
it's not good for anything.
True, but my bosses, they didn't know, but like I was definitely eating I was definitely drinking a whole bunch of Red Bull and coffee before work on those days. Like, I'm doing great, boss. I wasn't up at 2 a.m. watching a bunch of 20-something-year-olds play video games for 4 hours. That was somebody else. That was some other human being.
Definitely
That's ridiculous. I watched a video that Hank Green put out, and I don't mean this to be us just rehashing Hank and John stuff. I watched a Hank Green personal video not too long ago where he described how him being on the internet, he is like a citizen of YouTube because so much of his life is there. He has a community there. He has interests there. He checks in on it. He is like, his business is there. So he's much more so than you or me would be. But like the reason I was so invested at the time was because I was checking on message boards. I was watching the live stream and watching, like, I can't participate in live stream chats because it goes too fast and I just think it's like my brain goes numb. But when something big happens, you literally can instantly see just like everyone go score, whatever. Right?
Yes.
And you're a part of that community. You're essentially a citizen of, John and Hank's community where, freaking Wimbledon AFC or AFC Wimbledon is a thing. And that's really cool. And I think it's very unique to the internet. Like, I think the internet has brought like this very unique thing to us that, like, because I couldn't share in the awesomeness in a win of like Manchester United with anyone around here. I would have to force friends to watch that at 4 a.m. or something.
Yes.
But with the internet, I can be if I want to be. And I think it's really cool that you have like that kind of option and that kind of community. And it's interesting that it becomes that you become like a little mini citizen or whatever of it, as Hank put it.
That's a really good line to draw because I am so bad at participating in social media, especially on behalf of this podcast. And honestly, I don't participate in much in general. But an interesting thing, John Green, who we've been talking about, who is like one of the biggest, and just like to put this in perspective. So, AFC Wimbledon is a fan-owned club, and some of their like everybody in football has like sponsors on their jerseys and stuff. And AFC Wimbledon literally has DFTBA, which is the brand of John and Hank Green's stuff on the back of their shorts.
Nice.
On the leg part of their shorts. So like just to put that in perspective. But anyways, he doesn't really participate in Twitter or anything like that, but he does have a secret sports Twitter, which is basically just to tweet about AFC Wimbledon stuff. And like there's this like small community of us that like during games will tweet about stuff that's happening. It's not like a lot of people, like maybe I don't know, a few dozen or so. And it's like a very fun thing to be a part of because there's not a lot of...
That's very cool because it's like so not so niche, but like so exclusive or small that that's really cool.
Yeah, like maybe there's 100 people that would like participate if it was a really crazy game or something like that. But like it's very small compared to like, I don't know, 99% of big things on the internet. Like that's a very small community of people.
The overlap there is probably not huge, right? Like the amount of people who are both sports and or soccer fans who are also into Hank and John content is probably not like that's probably not a community that self-selects for overlap or whatever, right? Like that's
right. Well, and like AFC Wimbledon itself probably has like 10,000 fans max.
Right.
So,
fair
like
as well, right?
Generously has that. So it's not like there's a huge selection of people to start with.
Nobody getting hyped on it from SportsCenter. Damn, SportsCenter always only going after the big markets and the actual professional teams. Very rude.
Oh man. Well, this is what
they are professional. Yeah.
They are professional. Yeah. Nick, real quick before we go into some of the things you have, and I'll make this very, very short because this will be a bigger thing later on. Hopefully in a few months. Space stuff, Nick. So
dude.
James Webb Telescope. I've mentioned it on this show before, but it's been a very long time since I've talked about anything space stuff related. Earlier today, breaking news, Nick. They announced that December 18th is the potential launch date for the James Webb Telescope. Okay. Which is freaking amazing because there's a lot of rumors that it was maybe going to be delayed for like 3 or 4 years or so, just because of timing with a lot of things. But it's maybe a little bit optimistic, but at least right now it's penciled in to be here, and just at the time of the release of this episode, it'll be basically 3 months and a few days. And Nick, I was emotional about the Mars landing stuff. This will be like at or above, because the amount of pictures and science that we can do with this thing across the entire galaxy and the universe is just going to be absolutely amazing. And I am super nervous. And there's a quote from a guy. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hold on. Basically, 20 years of my life will come down to this moment, which is just like, that means like like basically it will be either 20 years of his life will be the result of like very, very many amazing discoveries and beautiful pictures and etc., or it will be cliff notes in a Wikipedia article about how great it would have been and how tragic that it blew up on entry to space or didn't unfold correctly or etc. And like, oh man, that made me so uncomfortable just to think about, like the level of anxiety and the fact that it might not even, like, it may end in 3 months, but it also may get delayed and be years from now that they actually figure out whether or not the past 2 decades of your life have been worth anything or not. That is, mad respect to the people that do this, because that is really hard to even think about.
That's scary, Jeff. That's big scary.
It's a big scary. Hopefully we have more updates in a few months that are positive, and that we get that thing into space and taking some pictures soon.
Jeff, have we talked about how bad we are? Are you good at sharing with your wife?
You mean like food or?
Yes, like food, things, like, I don't know, like, I guess space and or like blankets and things like this.
No.
No. We may have already kind of talked about this, but I'm a middle child of a child of, or, you know, the third child out of 4 in my family. And I have always felt like I have to just grab as much crap as possible, because if there's 4 other hands at the dinner table, like, you just grab food. Same thing with space. It's like, I will establish that this is my spot and you need to figure it out. And this doesn't work as great with a wife. Literally, I was thinking about joking about this with you because of something else that happened. But right before I came upstairs, my wife ordered dinner and picked it up on her way home. And she got a soda because it gets us under some like pickup thing with some app or whatever. And we never have soda. And I didn't even think she liked this soda, but she had it between us. And so literally, as I was coming upstairs, I went to like just finish it off and just took like a big swig to finish it off. Cause I was like, all right, I gotta go upstairs. And she looked at me like I was like the worst person in the world. Like I just stole everything from her. She's like, I don't know if I even got a sip of that. I was like, oh, were we sharing that? I didn't even ask. I just killed it. And I think that's just me. My first instinct is to just eat and kill everything in front of me that I might possibly want.
Eat and kill, Nick.
Kill the colloquial term. Eat and drink all of the things. Finish off all the things that I
was going to say, like, we've hung out. I'm glad that you were able to exercise restraint.
Fair.
So this is manifested itself in a couple different ways. Before I do that, though, what was the drink?
It was just Sprite.
Sprite. Okay. This will become relevant later.
Oh no.
So here's my thing. I have constantly been pegged as a very, very fast eater, like in a kind of a disturbing way. So I kind of get made fun of for that by most people I've ever eaten anything in front of.
That's probably really good when you're sharing, right? Because they have plenty of time to decide if they want to share with you, like between the 2 bites that you're going to get.
Yeah, I think this might have been because me and my brother ate a lot of food growing up. But so that is a thing I get made fun of. Then there's the other thing, which was that I've gotten used to with my wife, which is she grew up in a different household where, like, if mom or dad or whoever had a particular food and they put it in the refrigerator, that was their food. Hard stop.
Yes.
Like, I don't care if that is a leftover from 17 days ago. If you dare, take that, it is unacceptable. So that's
also, I do agree with that in principle. I do.
Oh, okay.
I do.
See, my thing, like, but Nick, how many leftovers do you end up throwing out? Like, I feel like we throw out way too many leftovers. And I feel like I'm doing the world a favor if it's been there for more than 5 minutes.
that is very fair. That is very, very fair.
But I will say there are some times where I've had this in reverse, where I remember back in my college days where I would get like some buffalo wings, and I was so looking forward to having them left over, and then my wife or whoever would eat said buffalo wings. And
wings are good wings are like the kind of food that's like better left over.
Yeah, like they can be so good. And to have that disappointment, I do understand. But like, I don't know. These days I feel like if there's a food in there, it's been more than a day or so. Like that should be fair game.
If it's the first time you're seeing it, I think you're in the right there. I will say, maybe it's like I feel like sisters don't have the same kinds of leftovers. Like they're just smart and don't order boatloads of food. Unlike men, we're dumb, big dumb. That's stereotyping, or maybe it's just my sisters. But yeah.
Oh gosh, this just reminded me that there's such a much better example of this that is much more dramatic.
Let me in your world.
Okay, so if you got a bag of chips out of the pantry or wherever, and Jen wanted some, would that be like a big deal? Like to like share the bag of chips as you're eating some or whatever? Like she wanted some, stick her hand in and grab some?
No, I'd share with her. I'd probably eat a disproportionate amount of them, but
my wife gets so mad. She's like, I just wanted to have these chips. I don't even know why. If she gets the bag of chips out until she's done, that's her bag of chips, and she should not be interrupted with her. I'm sorry, Katie, I love you. But yeah, like, I feel like that's a little bit crazy. Like, if she has, like, it's with anything. It's not even just chips. Like, if she has something that she's eating that should be shared by most normal human standards, it's not acceptable until she's done, because she got it out. And she's going to enjoy it by herself until she's done.
That's really funny. I don't have any like particular comparison to that. What I will say is that maybe I just offset this by like, if we're gonna grab a bag of Funyuns or whatever, we usually don't get the individual size. Like, I don't even know the last time I got an individual size of a thing.
No, yeah.
Which
it's
probably
not even that. No, it's like a huge bag of something. She just doesn't like people. She doesn't like people grabbing into the bag while she's doing it. Like, it just makes her annoyed.
In my mind, she doesn't even have those regular size ones. She's got like those Costco party size ones.
No, it's like the jumbo size bag of Doritos. She's like, This is my Doritos for now. You can have them when I'm done with them, but not at the same time.
I actually, as I'm thinking about this, I feel for my wife even more because, so the one that we do have is we have like the individual popcorn serving like little things every now and then. Yeah, Jen definitely makes those for herself and then ends up having to make a second one after I've gouged her out of her.
Yes.
Like poached all of them from her.
I could feel that.
Yeah. It's like, I wasn't hungry until you had a bag of popcorn in front of your face. And then I had to eat it all.
Okay, Nick, this is a hard one. Because I've had it on my list of things I wanted to learn a little bit more about and to talk about on this podcast, but it's probably one of the most well-known things that we've ever talked about as like a main topic.
Okay.
Especially in the world of weird marketing things, because that's kind of our jam occasionally.
Definitely true.
We love us a good marketing story. If you Google worst marketing decision ever, without doing so, do you know what that answer is?
No, not at all.
Do you want to now Google worst marketing decision ever and
of course.
See if you can guess what this topic is?
What is the worst? Oh, I'm getting a lot of the... Okay, here we go. The worst marketing disaster of all time. It's Coca-Cola. Oh wait, no.
Yep. What is it saying about Coca-Cola?
It was dubbed the worst marketing disaster and still is over 35 years later. What?
It is New Coke. Do you know about this, Nick?
Oh, I've kind of heard about New Coke.
Okay, I feel like everybody has kind of heard about New Coke, but
yeah.
So feel free to interject as I go through this, but I think it's a fun story. Can
I just real quick tell you that it's funny that it is Coke, because my first thought was the Pepsi thing with the Kardashian girl and the cops.
Oh gosh, yes, which is also often on this list of bad things.
Okay, because that commercial that was pretty far up there. That was pretty good. So you're telling me Coke did even worse? I'm excited to hear. So let me into your world.
Yeah, so it's ostensibly a story about marketing. We'll get to that though. It's a little bit more than that. But yeah. If you Google worst marketing blunder or decision ever or whatever, you're always like, there's no way that you're not going to find a list that doesn't have New Coke on it.
Okay.
And it's a thing that a lot of people have probably heard of. But if you're young whippersnappers like us, where all this occurred before we were born, it's unlikely that you know like 100% of all the story, unless, I don't know, you've ran across another podcast that covered it or whatever. But today we're going to be that podcast for at least somebody out there. 1980s, a lot of things started happening. First off, I just want to establish some vernacular here, Nick. Do you, we've talked about this before. I'm like 99% sure. Do you call the thing that is Coke and Pepsi, do you call it soda?
Yeah. I lived in the Northeast for some of my adolescence, and everyone called it pop. And okay. I am not unfamiliar or like uncomfortable. I don't have an opinion or anything, but definitely more soda out here.
I'm not like super passionate about this, unless I was super passionate about it when we recorded the episode, in which case I have very strong opinions.
Yeah, of course.
At least me now in September of 2021, I don't really care all that much. I call it pop, but I respect soda as an acceptable option.
Viable alternative. Okay, appreciate that.
I will try to use that occasionally just to make you feel included here. Anyways, in the 1980s, people were starting to drink a lot more soda. 7-Eleven Big Gulp moved from 32 ounces to 64 ounces, which is just so much. That's so much.
Hey, 7-Eleven, this is a real big jump. That's a real big jump, 7-Eleven. I don't know about that one. I think that one was a little bit large. I think that might have been more than they needed to do. I'm upset.
That's a lot of soda or pop. Pepsi versus Coke. That really was the big rivalry back then. Do you know who back in the early 80s would have been the more dominant of the two companies?
I assume just Coke. I assume it's just always been Coke, because like the Coca-Cola ad from the 60s that Mad Men had, and like I've just always associated Coca-Cola as like the all-American drink and stuff. So I would just assume that, but I'm not sure.
You're 100% right. And in parts of the countries, unlike pop or soda, people call those sort of drinks Coke, which I feel like is pretty indicative of the dominance of the brand.
That's your point.
In the late 1800s was when both were founded. The Coca-Cola company was earlier on in that. Pepsi was like a decade or so after. But like it's been kind of interesting in the last 2 decades or so. Soda consumption has actually decreased quite a lot. But in the past year and a half,
good for us, guys.
In the past year and a half, though, Nick, I'm not sure what may have contributed to this.
Was any cultural shifts happening a year and a half ago? Anything newsworthy?
I'm not sure, but regardless, there has been a resurgence of soda consumption. I don't know. I found that interesting as I was doing some of the research on this across different articles, because, like I said, this is kind of a popular thing, so there's definitely a lot out there, but not a lot recently. And I thought it was kind of interesting to run across the fact that both Pepsi and Coke have had lots of increases in sales because of pandemic.
That's a bummer.
People try to find things that they can use as a respite to all the things going on in the world.
Just a small little bit of joy. People are allowed to do that, but it's also a bummer. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so Coke by far is the dominant brand in the United States for dang near a decade. Wow, did I say decade? I meant century.
Yeah.
And into the 70s, there started to be the thing called the Pepsi Challenge. Do you want to, like, back in the 70s, like, you want to take a stab about what the Pepsi Challenge might have been?
I'm going to have nothing. I mean, how fast can you chug a Pepsi is all I can think. But like,
no, they started to do blind taste tests with
if you could tell between
and
Coke.
Coke. Not if you could tell the difference, if you could pick which one was better. And the originally was done as a study sponsored by Pepsi, which maybe some might say have a little bit of bias in their willingness to give these results to people. But
it was say what an easy marketing challenge. Hey guys, go buy one of our drinks and drink it, and tell us if it's better than the other drink that you should also buy. What a good.
They did do blind like tests. Like they had one that was Pepsi, one that was Coke. Tell us which one you think is which, and which one you think is better. And according to Pepsi, people generally preferred the Pepsi product over the Coke.
Okay, fair.
During the same time that this was happening, so like Pepsi, they really, really marketed that as a result, but it was all from them. During the same time, Coke was transitioning out of their old formula from like their sugar-based formula to a corn syrup-based formula because it was significantly cheaper to do that. And really nobody noticed. So they did that to increase margins. And then, though, they wanted to...
With no repercussions on the general well-being or health of the whole world. Continue.
Yeah, just as a... Thank you for the small footnote.
Sorry.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
It had
to. So they switched to corn syrup, but they were still failing to surpass Pepsi in these blind taste tests, like even ones that they had themselves. And so because of how many exclusivity contracts that they have, which is actually why, like, if you go to a restaurant even today, like they either have Pepsi products or Coke products. It's extraordinarily rare that you would walk in anywhere that has both. Right. This started very, very early on. Coke struck up deals with all these major brands, like McDonald's and stuff like that, where like they were exclusive providers for these people for like decades sometimes in some of these contracts. So they knew they didn't need to like figure anything out like super, super fast, but they did know, like they at least took note that even based on their own studies, people prefer Pepsi's taste. And so they were like, okay, we have some time, but we need to figure this out.
That makes sense.
So that leads us to some experiments. And really, like, I feel like this is really fun because this is like two things in a week or in the past 2 weeks where the genesis of like what this like started to turn to something else happened in a place near me. But the Coca-Cola initial experiment to like start to figure out a new flavor was called Project Kansas.
Oh, cool.
So I feel pretty cool about that.
Very cool. Yeah.
There you go. That's my street cred internet. Is I'm part of the state where that happened.
I'm not sure that you know what street cred means.
You know what, Nick? Yeah, I agree. Anyways, so they started the Project Kansas, which was to try to find a slightly more sweet, more popular version that would beat both Pepsi and original Coke in taste tests. And turns out they were able to do just that. They were able to find that in blind taste tests, overwhelmingly, the new Coke beat regular Coke and narrowly beat Pepsi in blind taste tests. And they're like they did lots of focus groups on this. They had surveys, they had experiments, etc. But really, what it came down to was in the industry, new Coke had a significant advantage over old Coke and Pepsi in the cola industry.
Okay.
And
so they thought they were to take out the old thing, the most iconic soda ever?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
it was like the statistics behind it, I guess. Like, didn't dive into this too much. But allegedly, like, it was so convincingly better that there were bottling companies that Coca-Cola worked with that threatened to sue the company if it did not put the new drink on the market. Like, if they refused to do it.
What?
Because they were spending all this money to bottle old Coke when they could have been making more money, more margins on the new recipe because it was statistically better.
True, right? But like that argument, I feel like that's hypothetically there for a whole lot of things. Like, you've been having us sell these clothes when you could have been having us sell these better clothes? You jerk! I'll sue you. Like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy to think that there's companies that were going to sue them for not putting a product to market.
So Coca-Cola did, though. They started it small in the South, and like, it was really well received.
Okay.
They started to expand to other markets. They started to expand, introducing new Coke in coast cities. They did it in New York and Seattle and San Francisco and etc. And it started to be available at McDonald's and other places where they had exclusivity contracts with. And before you knew it, they stopped selling old Coke in the entire United States. And I think actually in the entire world. And during that time, that really early period, they had sales increase up over 8% over what they had sold the previous year. So, like, it was all going pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds successful, yeah.
I'm sure there's nothing bad that would happen after that.
Yeah, like, I mean...
I said ominously.
Yeah, I mean, we know that they are they did make the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake. Sorry, go ahead.
So there started to be a little bit of resentment in this change, and it started to grow in where they originally did their first test, which was in the South. People did end up, they felt offended that part of their regional identity, because Coca-Cola is based out of Atlanta, Georgia, so it's from the South. And at first, they liked it because it tasted good, but then a small group of people started to breed this dissentiment or this attitude toward the new Coke as a Civil War surrender to the Yankees, because they thought it was all this marketing and big city stuff that was changing their thing that they considered to be part of their identity for the entirety of its existence.
Can I just say that I think that stereotypes of Southern people as, like, dumb and over the top about certain kinds of freedoms and rights and stuff is very reductionist and harmful and rude, and I really don't like those kinds of stereotypes and jokes. But also, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, guys.
It's
like, my guys from the South. Like, we gotta work on this. Okay, we gotta work on this. Letting some of the things go. That's when you gotta let go. It's not a conspiracy from the big cities, guys. It's just Coca-Cola trying to sell more Coca-Cola.
Yeah. But Nick, to add credence to these conspirators,
wait, are you telling me it was? Oh my God.
No,
I'm on a roller coaster here. Sorry.
But to the people that believed it was, the Pepsi company is based out of New York. So that's where kind of like the lines were drawn as far as how all this had gotten influenced. It's Pepsi trying to take over and defeat the old Southern brand of Coca-Cola. During that time, the company received over 40,000 calls and letters expressing anger or disappointment, like in the early days.
That's a lot of calls, Jeff.
That is a lot. One example was somebody who wrote to, quote, Chief Dodo, the Coca-Cola company, which was their letter to their CEO asking for an autograph because the signature of the dumbest executive in American history would likely become valuable in the future.
That's a pretty good burn.
That's a pretty good burn. The company.
I take it back. All my Southern brothers, like, you got it down. You got nailed it. That was pretty sick.
The company hotline 1-800-GET-COKE received over 1,500 calls a day as compared to 400 calls per day before the change.
That's good.
a psychiatrist, a psychiatrist. Wow, I got my degree in psychology.
Psychology. Yeah, I was like, what?
A psychiatrist who Koch hired to listen in on the calls told the executives that most people sounded as if they were discussing the death of a family member. So a little bit dramatic. It came to come out that a lot of this was driven or escalated by a guy named Gay Mullins, who was a guy out of Seattle who was about to retire, but decided that this was a good opportunity to get outraged at the world. I don't know how else to describe it than that.
I mean, you know.
So he founded Old Cola Drinkers of America, which was an organization that directed all this hate toward New Coke and Coca-Cola, and it grew a lot.
Can I say that doesn't sound like today, in today's terminology, that doesn't sound like a group like protesting Coca-Cola's changes in product? It sounds like a really specific, like, retired people's club, like very weird, like, yeah, we're really big on different colas around here, you know.
So what he started is honestly super impressive given the time, because nowadays this would be a lot more understandable because the internet's crazy. But during that time, he ended up having over 100,000 people join his organization as people that were protesting against the new Coke.
Nice, that's a lot.
And they were here's what happened, Nick. Basically, it was a thing that was probably genuinely a better product. Like people objectively enjoyed it better based on blind taste test. And when it was really originally introduced, because there was no internet, people just went like they enjoyed it because it was better. Like there's definitely some people that didn't like it as much because that's how that's how taste works. Like people are going to not prefer it. But they didn't have a place to really unify around until Gay Mullins came around. And by founding this, he got all these people together. And it really, really escalated from there. It turns out if you are a news station or a journalist or a newspaper or whatever, and a large beverage company introduces a new flavor, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of good. People seem to like it. That's not a very exciting story. But if you have a bunch of people, hundred thousands of which think that it is an offense to their American right to have their heritage maintained in this form of this beverage, that's a lot more. That sells some papers, Nick.
It does. I could see how that would get some people's attention.
That gets some people's attention. That gets views. That gets television advertisers excited, etc. So it became very popular, both in print and in TV media. And at the end of the day, on July 11th, 1985, a mere 79 days after New Coke's introduction, they relented and reintroduced classic Coca-Cola.
Damn, dude.
And ultimately killed New Coke.
75 days.
79 days. 79
days. So.
And on the day of Old Coke's reintroduction, they sent the very first case to Gay Mullins as as a nod to the fact that he caused all this to happen.
Damn.
So go ahead.
No, that just, it seems out of place to out of character for a company to be gracious about it. It seems like those kinds of people are usually derided for, you know what I mean?
I don't think it was gracious, Nick. I don't think that was a gracious nod. I'm pretty sure.
That's fair.
I'm sure that was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek nod, just to put it as nicely as possible.
Okay, fair. You're right.
Do you think it ended there, Nick?
No, I assume not.
Based on my question.
Especially when you ask me that question. No.
Yeah.
I assume that they wanted to sell this new, better tasting thing that should have been selling more, that they probably put costs into R&D and production stuff for.
No, they had been pretty beaten into a pulp by this point. But Gay Mullins was still interested in staving off retirement just a little bit longer. He after the reintroduction of Coca-Cola Classic, he took his gift from the Coca-Cola company and said that it was different than what he remembered as a kid.
Oh, come on, dude! Come on, dude! Dude, you won! Won!
He said that after only a couple bourbon and cokes, he felt sick, whereas he used to be able to, back in his younger days, have multiple, like more bourbon and cokes than that.
Hold on, dude. I gotta tell you something. This may not be the Coca-Cola thing. This may not be Coca-Cola's fault here. It's hard to say for sure.
It's hard to say. But what he espoused as the reason is because back in the day, Coca-Cola, if you remember from the beginning of this segment, they made all their stuff with sugar, and they transitioned to corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. And he said that this was them trying to sneak in high fructose corn syrup alternatives to their sugar variety of Coke that he enjoyed from the good old days, except for all that happened half a decade before any of this stuff went down. So like for 5 years or so, like there was only the high fructose corn syrup Coke available. Nobody even said a thing, but now he made this big deal now that they brought back, quote unquote, the classic recipe, but it was just the corn syrup recipe, not the one with real sugar.
Can I just say, it's like the guy was somehow like helped throw a collective fit and won. Like I'm like criticizing this guy. I don't really care. I
to be clear, you should, and we'll get there. You should though. You should criticize this guy. But he
threw a collective fit and won, and then even got a free case of a free Coke, and then it was like, no, it's not enough. I don't like it.
So,
and I say that as somebody who doesn't want freaking hypertense corn syrup in our stuff. God.
Okay, we're gonna reach the end here.
Yes.
And this just makes me. This is like such perfect. This is perfect Tywasat material. So all these things happen. The guy gets what he wants. He says it's not good enough. So he goes and does like this public thing. I don't know if it was brought on by Coke or something that he was trying to do. But we go back to blind taste tests, Nick. So Mr. Gay Mullins goes on I didn't take notes on it. He goes and does a very public blind taste test of Coke made with just sugar versus Coke with corn syrup. He cannot distinguish the difference between them at all. And turns out mostly nobody can. Like it's really the same thing. Nobody has any idea like how these sort of tastes differ at all. It's just nothing.
It's nothing.
It's just nothing. They cannot tell. This is all just this is I don't want to state this as like an absolute, but based on what I understand, like this is just all in their heads or purposely being made up to make up something to keep them in the public spotlight. But do you want to? You've been a part of the internet here in the 2010s and 2020s. Do you want to take a guess at the explanation the Gay Mullins gave?
It was a conspiracy. It was a terrible conspiracy from the liberal Yankees that had taken over good old Coca-Cola.
What do you over? This conspiracy had an effect on him. Do you want to guess what the effect was?
No, I don't know. What?
So, what him and all of his followers said was that New Coke had basically ruined and dulled all his taste buds, and so he could no longer tell the difference. But he could have back in the day, but now he could no longer.
I mean, that's just true. That's just true that they did that. They did the thing. It was their fault.
How else could you explain the fact that they couldn't tell the difference? I mean
there's no other explanation. What the hell? That's hilarious. That's fantastic. That's so good.
Freaking
so good.
Oh man, people. So there were some things that came out later, like where people had like the idea that Coke did all this on purpose, and for lots of reasons, I highly disagree with that. They were a very meticulous company. They were super, super late on. Like Pepsi came out with Diet Pepsi like a decade or two before Coke came out with Diet Coke. They were not people to like try something lightly. I think this was truly the reason why. The reason why people say that was the thing that they did on quote unquote purpose was because what they ended up doing was going back to the original recipe, and sales skyrocketed because of all the attention. So people think that was like some kind of thing that they tried to do intentionally.
That makes sense, I guess.
I highly doubt it was intentional though. Like they were not the sort of company to take that sort of risk. And I also don't really. A lot of this is like espoused to be things that were blunders in marketing. I actually think that all the things that Coke did on the marketing standpoint or on the marketing front were really like solid. Or, I mean, obviously a little bit short-sighted with how people would be, but to me, what this really spoke to was people can politicize freaking anything.
True.
Even a beverage taste that literally nobody can even tell the difference with. And it doesn't matter. Like one of the Coke executives said, like they could have made the elixir of the gods and people still would not have bought it.
Pissed off that they, yeah. Like that's very true, right? Like
it is the sort of thing, like we've talked about it in person a little bit. Anything can be politicized. I'm not sure. Like this,
what do you do if you're Coca-Cola? Which is, I'm not usually the one sympathetic to a company, but like, what do you do when
this could have, like, honestly, like this sort of stuff is so much easier to do now with social internet, where like before it was one guy who happened to be somewhat influential and could get a bunch of people to sign up for his newsletter, whatever the heck. But nowadays, like that can be almost anybody. Like there's so many more ways to have your voice echoed that this sort of stuff seems like way, way more doable than ever before. It probably happens a lot more than we realize, but
probably very, very true. Honestly, I mean, dude, that's so hard. Like, I don't know what to say about it. It also makes me like sad because I feel like it says something about like we're probably all kind of willing to be kind of outrage machines. If primed the right way, it's probably bad.
Look, just if you ever find yourself being upset about the flavor of a brand of chip or salsa
then I'm
or
right, like
pop
always.
or drink anything,
I'm justified.
If you feel very upset about a thing that doesn't matter, just remember there might be people that want you to be that way. I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
Oh man. But anyways, I hope that gives a very well-known topic a little bit of justice. There's definitely a lot of people that have done a lot better research on the thing, but it's been a thing on the backlog for a long time, and I find it very fascinating and interesting. So I want to talk about it today. But we should probably wrap this up, Nick. We need to go record our Patreon only episode or podcast of the episode of the Year We Started Another podcast, which is really quickly, if I have anything to say about it, going to turn into an NFL podcast for, I'd say, 18 to 24 weeks. If you want to check that out, go to patreon.com/TiWasApp.
You can also follow us at TiWasApp on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but not Snapchat. And you can find all of that at TiWasApp.com. I didn't forget that I was supposed to do part of the outro. You forgot that.
You did great, Nicholas Ager.
You forgot that.
You are much appreciated. Thank you for potting with me.
You're welcome. This has been the Year We Started the Podcast. Thank you for listening.